Don't worry. This is my first live broadcast for I don't know, maybe 4 weeks. I should actually check. It's been a while. Yes, it's a month because I was gone for the month of August. And now today is September 1st. So for me, it always feels like a new year, right? So we'll wait first and see how we go. I like to wait a couple of minutes, and then after a couple of minutes, then I will do my intro, your intro, and then we can jump into it. So yes, little tech test. It says that we are live.
And so people can join from on the LinkedIn page if they wanted to.
Yes.
Okay. I just shared it as well. Oh, I can see it right now.
Yes. So people can join either from LinkedIn or from YouTube, either or.
Interesting. I can see on LinkedIn on my phone. So I need to stop looking down on my phone.
So then you now need to close your phone. Close the phone.
Okay, good. I'll do that. I tried to share. That's
Perfect.
really nice. I didn't know that LinkedIn Live works like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot to learn from you, you know.
They've updated some of the functionality, which has been great, and I definitely like the fact that the banner is now us live, so it gives people the opportunity to pop in and peek in. I mean, the thing is, some people or a lot of people are still on holiday at least until the beginning of next week, but the 1st of September is still a day that should be marked, and this is a great occasion. So 1st of September for me in many ways the beginning of a new year, and it's great that I get down to sit with you, or great that I get to sit down with you, Glory, that we can actually talk about so many things, especially in the context of making an impact. I'm super excited to have you here as a fellow panelist for the Future of Impact Summit that we'll both be participating in, run by Jocko Unlimited next month. And it's really a great way for us to add backdrop and kind of depth to what it is that we're doing. How do we see impact? What does it look like? How do you see the future? And what does it mean to you? But before we get into that, would you like to introduce yourself just a little bit and let everybody know who you are and what you do? And then we can jump right in.
Of course. Thank you very much, Leanne, for having me on this show. I think you're doing a very important work, helping to showcase women and just helping to showcase people who are making an impact. So I appreciate you. Happy to be on the show. My name is Glory Oguegbu. I'm the founder of a nonprofit, Glow Initiative for Economic Empowerment, and then the Renewable Energy Technology Training Institute. Yeah, I always see my work. I used to say, when people ask me to introduce myself, I say, my biggest goal is to be a positive part of people's life and to make good impact. Now, if you check my LinkedIn bio, this is the beginning of it. And so it's such a very interesting irony that we're here talking about impact, because that has always been my mantra. How can I be a part of people's life and make sure I leave something positive with them? And so I think that's it. I don't want to talk too long because I know we have a whole conversation today, right?
Exactly. But that is definitely a great start, just for the fact that, when I think of the word impact, sometimes the way you've lived your life has meant that you wanted to make changes and affect particular groups. In my case, women, in my case, also Black women. But you don't realize that's what it is until you grow and you see that there are so many people out there who are living and walking the way they envisage their impacts to be, and they're doing that, and they've done that for ages, but they haven't labeled it as anything in particular. And this is why I'm so happy to speak with you, because what you're doing in so many different parts of your profile and your nonprofit plus your actual business is you're combining a way for us to really look towards the future and how you want to contribute to the society of today so that we can actually enjoy the society of tomorrow, which is for me a really, really powerful, really powerful proposition. So if we start back from there, what is impact to you?
Oh, thank you for that question. I think impact is a very big word.
Mm.
So I like to specify impact by saying positive impact. I like to be on the positive side, right? So what is positive impact? I said that my biggest goal, my leadership goal, was to be a positive part of people's lives and make a positive impact. So now, impact means how do I make somebody's life better than it was before I met them? How can my meeting somebody leave them better off? And this is coming from different perspectives of better job, better work, better well-being, better states of life. So I think that impact is that thing which makes people's life better. More people, not just one person, but more people. And it can be as little as possible, but it's their positive change though. So impact to me means opportunities for improvement for a community, for a home, or for a group of people. So that's it. Just so those two ways is the way that I choose to look at impact, making people's lives better and improving opportunities for improvements. Yeah, I hope it makes sense.
No, it does. And I think you were really right in kind of distilling down to positive impact, because not all impacts are actually positive. So, it's good to kind of focus on that part. And also that bit about coming in contact with a person, but leaving them in a better position than what you found them in before is definitely critical. And I think for me, I would just add one more part to that, which is in the work that I do, it's also part of my impact is sometimes changing people's mindset that they actually want to make the change. Because positive impact is something that we want to create, we want to do, but it isn't always the case that the people who need the change most also want the changes. So sometimes, the first step of impact is actually convincing them this is a good way to go.
Exactly. And I like what you just said. I want to bring that home with a quick story because I do some of my work in the solar renewable energy sector. And there is something interesting that happened. Now, we all know that solar energy helps with areas without electricity access, and solar can be a fast way to bring access to electricity. And there is a video that I saw making the rounds one day. And so I used this video to teach. The video was a community, a small community who have no access to electricity, right? And a big company had come to that neighborhood to provide solar electricity. So in this community, they had a large array of field where they have solar panels that generate light to the community. Now, the video records something I think was very interesting. We saw the community members come out one day chanting different songs, and they were tying red pieces of cloth on their heads, and they went ahead to break all of the solar panels. They went ahead to start to destroy it, right? So when asked, they said their gods were against this development. Their God did not want this type of development. And so I realized something very important, that the developer of that project, the company which did the job, did not do a good work with trying to change the mindset first. Of course, we all know that solar power was a good option for that community because they needed the electricity, isn't it? But their mindsets were not changed. They did not understand how this is a good thing for them, even though the person who was bringing the help understood that it was a good thing. Just like you said, helping people, talking to people to change their minds so that they can see how and why they need this change. And so they ended up destroying $1 million worth of investments into that area just because they were not told about the benefits. So I just said that to align with your points about why it's important to change people's mindset first to achieve impacts.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's it's definitely a working with, and I'm going to say a quick hi to Siobhan. Thank you for joining. I'd also say it's definitely something where you have to think about working with somebody to successfully create impact. Because to your point,
Exactly.
it sounds like this company came along, installed these solar panels, and thought this is a great idea. Because I always say help is only help if the people who need it want
Exactly.
it that way. But if it's you're coming in and you're kind of saying, well, I'm going to do this for you, this is going to make your life better, but you haven't done it in an assimilative way, then, this is what happens. It limits impact. So like you said, it's about, you need to start working with communities, working with
Exactly.
groups of people that you want to help, to understand, where do their fears lie, where do the problems lie, what could possibly hinder us making positive impact by us not fundamentally understanding how these group of people tick. And that's
Exactly.
usually an opportunity that a lot of companies miss out on, just by wanting to rush to provide a solution, but actually not wanting to work with communities, with particular groups, in order to get to the solution.
Yes, I agree with you fully. Um,
Please carry on.
oh, did you ask me a question? Sorry, I think I missed it.
No, no, I was going to just ask you. So, thinking about all of that in mind, and you can kind of start either with the Glow Initiative or with RETTI, how do you then use both of these outlets to really create positive impact?
Impact. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like always starting responding with a story, right? I'll start with a quick story of something that happened 6 years ago when I found myself. Okay, I see somebody that I know who's greeting me in the comments. Thank
Yeah,
you.
there you go. There's
Uh,
blessing.
something that started, yeah, something that happened in my life 6 years ago as a young graduate of in the Nigerian university, right? I
Hmm.
had just finished university, and there is the mandatory 1 year National Youth Service course. It's very similar to the United States Peace Corps.
Hmm.
I don't know how many years the United States Peace Corps is, but this one is 1 year. And
Hmm.
so after school, you are sent to a community to serve the nation. And so you're going to be there for 1 year. And so, as a corper, we call it core member, you can identify some problems in the community and you may
Hmm.
choose to solve them. The
Hmm.
problem with this though is that the problems can be numerous, and only you may not be able to solve all at once. But I just
Right.
want to quickly share a story to outline impact, right? And in this community I've been posted, I discovered two interesting things in the community. One, I noticed that there were lots of women who were just lounging around by the community roadsides, by the market area, in
Hmm.
front of the churches, in front of the mosques, doing nothing. There were a lot. And so that was why I noticed it at first, right?
Hmm.
They were also mostly young. And so I started to ask questions. Why are there so many women that are not doing anything? I was
Hmm.
curious. And I was told that they were widows. And so they sit down there begging for alms, hoping that the people who have come to the king's palace would give them some money. I also became very, very intrigued by that. Why so many widows, and why do we have a lot of young women there? Now,
Hmm.
I also saw something exciting about the community. They were a community that grew a lot of cassava. Now, cassava is a staple food in
Yep.
Africa. From
Hmm.
cassava, you can make up to 10 different kinds of meals, right?
Yep.
So, and this community, a lot of farmers in this community grew this cassava in abundance so that they even exported some of it to other cities.
Hmm.
So I was very curious. How come you have cassava here and you are poor? Those were the questions that I asked. How come you have cassava from which you can make 10 other types of food and sell, and you are
Right.
poor? So that my assignment was cut out for me. I then knew that if we could set up a system to process this cassava and bring out all of these different types of food, we can have jobs for those 200 women. And so I went ahead to count. I counted up to 200 widows because I had help from the churches and mosques. Now, I was 23 years old at the time. Of course, I mean, I think that's old. That's not so young. Then I used to think I was so young, 23 and
Don't.
doing this
Okay, hold on. But
project
you said you're 20, but you said you were 23,
at the
6 years
time.
ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, 6 years ago. So you're not even 30, Glory.
Oh no, I'm actually 30. I think it's 7 years ago or so. I think I missed it. So about 7 years ago. Anyway, but then I was thinking, you know, I would do this. So I started looking for a system to help with setting up a cassava processing factory that could process cassava and bring out all of those multiple foods. You can imagine, I mean, I don't know if you can already think about the amount of jobs that could be created from just that. And I began to look for money. It was one of the most difficult periods of my life. And I regularly share about this in my
Mhm.
social media. I always talk about my NYC year and what happened, right? Actually, and right now we're talking about it. I know that I wrote a book. Of course, it's a free book about it because it's on my table. That's why I decided to show it. My point is that my point was that we created a cassava processing factory. It looks like a difficult thing. How can you build a factory? You're too young. You're not the government. How can you want to build a factory for widows? Are you the government? Are you the governor's wife? That was what the people told me. And of course, it was a very daunting task that looked
Mhm.
impossible. But I always thought about the impact that could become from that, the impact and how the lives of those women can change. All they needed was a little petty job every day to earn them some money every day, right? And luckily for me, it's always important that when you have an idea that could be impactful, you have to speak about it to somebody. Somebody else have to hear that conversation. Don't keep it
Right.
to yourself. Yes, make sure that someone else hears that conversation. And I talked about it. And the king of the community gave me a piece of land. He said, I want to support you, build this thing in the piece of land. I was encouraged. Do you understand why? Because now there is something positive that has come out of this big idea I thought in my head. Who knows that this big idea could even start? And to cut a long story short, I was able to raise the money to build the factory, and all the 200 women were employed. What do? They try to process cassava in the different forms and they start to supply the food, the
Mm.
end result to markets. And now there's something you said initially, which I want to recount again, that sometimes we could start our journey to make impact and we don't even know how it could end or how it could turn out,
Mm.
right? We don't know what the impact actually be, the reach of the impact. You know you want to make impact, but you don't know what the reach is going to be, right? And
Right.
that's exactly what happened in this story. I had no idea that it was going to be mind blowing. The attention that the factory got was mind blowing because I had thought I wanted to empower widows to begin to sell, to do petty trading and earn money. But the market, all of the local markets in the area began to come to the factory to buy the produce from the women.
Mm.
I mean, how cool is that? I didn't know that that was going to happen. So sometimes that is how impact can be. That little idea you think in your mind, you may have something you have already thought in your mind, but it can be better, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You
No,
just
that
need to
makes sense.
persevere, exactly, and just do it. And the impact can be better. From this very initiative, I was able to create a microfinance scheme for the women because they began to
Mm.
make a lot of money from the factory and they
Right.
needed to begin to learn to each other, begin to give to each other, and just doing this project. And when I started this project, I didn't know it was going to be impactful. I didn't know it was going to attract even the US government's attention to the place, right? I wasn't sure what was going to become of it. But it's just an encouragement to anyone who's listening that you can go for it. I mean,
Mm.
there's a quote that I like: when you have a dream in your heart, never let it go. Just go for it. But I hope I've
Right.
been able to answer your question.
No, no, you have, but so you see now you might have a problem with me because I have a couple of questions for you. When you noticed this disparity within these women, did you speak to them as well and ask them what they wanted in order to be able to
Yes.
couple the the cassava processing deficit with them having, them being around, milling around on the streets? Did they say, we can't find work? This is what we would like to have, like not specifying what kind of job, but like how did that process go? Because I think that's really key, a really key part of the story.
Yes, I think it's very key to always carry community members along. Yes. And
Hmm.
so when I saw this woman, the first thing I did though, because I didn't speak the language, they spoke a different
Mm.
language from me. I was not able
Mm.
to understand the language they spoke, the dialect that they spoke. What I
Hmm.
did though was that I went to their church and mosque leaders. These
Right.
women go to the churches and they go to the mosque. So I went to the church leaders, I tried to understand about it. And the church leaders were the ones that said these were widows. And then the church leaders were able to find me some
Wow.
of them who spoke English. And I talked with
Hold
them.
on. Just so I'm clarifying this, because like there's part of the PC side of me, and then there's the other side that's like they were calling them weirdos. That just to make sure I understood that.
Widows, WIDOWS, the people who have lost their
Oh,
husband.
widows. Sorry, it was my misunderstanding. Like I was like, weirdos. Why are they widows? Got it.
I
Sorry.
understand. I think it's my
Yeah,
accent. That's okay.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
So,
I understand.
that's good though. I'm glad I clarified that, because I was like,
Of course.
what? So they're all widows. That's what they had in common.
The widows, yes, 200 of them,
Yeah.
yes. Right. And so, I mean, I spoke to one of them eventually who spoke English, and she recounted a story to me about what had happened to her. How she had lost her things after her husband died,
Mm-hmm.
and how it is that they needed jobs. In fact, the most important query was how to feed their children. And so I
Right.
said, to be able to feed your children, you need a job. You need
Mm-hmm.
something that can bring in little money for you. Of course, I can't make you rich. Of course, the project I'm doing can't make you rich, but it can help you with that daily little money that you can get to feed. And maybe eventually something bigger can come out of it. And that was
Right.
it. And I actually worked with them. They gave me a lot of ideas around how to do the factory and where to get the equipment from. So it was actually
Mm-hmm.
the woman who told me where I can get the equipment that they can work with. So it was a community thing where everybody played
That's
a role.
amazing. Yeah, yeah.
Eventually, though, we built up a leadership team for this group to ensure sustainability. So the women themselves selected a president, a vice president, a treasurer, and they were able to ensure sustainability and manage the funds. But quickly, before I end that story, I'll tell you something that happened to me that year on the Christmas of that year. Now, after I did my 1 year youth service in the community,
Mm-hmm.
I left afterwards, of course. I left the project for them. They were making money already. And I went back to my home in March of that year. And in December, I'd forgotten about them. I was just doing my other things. I'd already forgotten about it. And I get a call on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day. And it was from the president of the Women Association that we created. And she says, Copper Glory, we're here today. We gathered in the church. All of the women are here. We have bags of food. We have bags of rice. We have provisions. We have milk. We have dairy. We have cheese. We have all these things that we want to share to all the other women. We've been able to buy these things from the proceedings from the factory. And now all the widows are going to have a Christmas package for the Christmas. We want to say thank you to you because of the factory you created is really, really well. And I did not know when I started crying whilst I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to that call because it was
Right.
like, hello, I already left this place. So you mean this thing is working? You mean this thing is actually working? And I was like, who am I? This thing is actually working that I did. So the impact was actually sustainable. And I just felt really so grateful at that point that this is working. And because we're talking about impact, I think it's also important to have the sustainability in mind, right?
Right.
Whilst you're trying to make this impact, it doesn't matter how big it has to be. But the important thing is you can do a little thing that can be sustainable. You can do something for one person instead of for 100 that can be sustainable. So thank you for sharing, for asking me that. And eventually I will get into the renewable energy side of things, but that's for the non-profits making impact side of things.
Yeah, no, but that's I think, before we get to the renewable energy part, I think we
Yeah.
have to kind of take a pause and think about all of it, because we have to think about the fact that you were, on the one hand, we can talk purely in monetary terms, but the point is the money was a means by which these women created their independence. They
Yes.
created their own financial ecosystem. As you said, they started to microfinance by lending through each other. It was also providing them with different skills. And when I say different skills that they probably had before in terms of, the skills you
Yes.
might use for housekeeping or whatever, but it's
Definitely.
putting all these practical skills that they've had and been using for all of those years to then
Yes.
put it in a business context. But also you help them carve. And this is the great thing about when you think about impact is you help them to build a new identity within a new world. And that for me is always key to anything that I'm doing is it's supporting women companies to redefine themselves, but also to be able to survive with this new person that they've grown into. And this is what I love about the story, because it's the impact is so much more than just these women being able to provide is one of the best outcomes. But what has been given to them above and beyond is
The
really
skill.
spectacular.
Yes, the skill. Thank you very much for pointing that out. The ability to become independent,
Mm,
right? And so the women would not have to stay on the streets anymore. They don't have to beg on the streets anymore. Now they have something they can look forward to. They can have a little money for meals every day. And of course, eventually, I don't know what they have built out of that, because they're making money from the factory. I
yeah.
went ahead eventually to connect the NYSC scheme, the National Service Scheme, to the
Hmm.
women to purchase some of their produce when they have coppers in the camp, because they receive young people from Nigeria up to 3,000 in a camp for 3 weeks, and they have to feed
Hmm.
them. I told them, oh, why not purchase your materials from the women? And they agreed. So
Hmm.
that project helped to bring jobs for them
Right.
as well. So all of this helps with that. But I like what you said about skills, right? There's something called handwork in Nigeria, handwork, like something you know how to do with your hands. So
Hmm.
if there's an adage that says you will never get poor, somebody who has a handwork can never get poor, because you there's something you can do with your hands. Now the women
Right.
have learned processing this food to the
Mm.
different aspects and the different parts of it. So there's nothing like poverty that's ever going to happen, except they misuse the skill, right? And yeah, that's it.
And I think there's another point to be, to be thought about, because it's very, I think one of the most interesting parts, well, one of the most interesting parts of this story is that all of these women were widows. So that speaks to the, let's say, the community's hierarchy, in terms of, as soon as a woman loses her husband, she has nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
She no longer has her income, her lifestyle, her home. Now she's forced to be on the road and not work. So it's also that it's
Yeah.
showing other young women, it may be that they want to do something further outside of their community, but you're still showing that as a woman without a partner, even if you had one and you've lost them because he died, you can still be independent as a woman. You can be a person, not somebody's wife, not just somebody's daughter, but you are a woman standing on your own. And that, just by having their presence there, is the next level of impact, because it shows the next generation of girls. They might say, I don't necessarily want to get married right now. I want to work at the factory for a couple of years. Now, obviously, that's going to move and shake the whole dynamic of the community, but it's
Yes.
still another part of impact that you've created, because you've set the ball in motion to show that there are other possibilities to how a woman can live and be and exist within these communities.
Yes, I fully agree. And I'd like to mention that that project actually affected the entire community
Mm,
economically, right?
yep.
Because now there are more people who have money. There are more women who can afford to pay little fees for the kids, and,
Right.
and so you can see the impact all over the place. And
Hmm.
I want to quickly add that the factory provided other jobs for other people as well, engineers to power the machines, the
Hmm.
equipment, right? So that one project, I'm just saying that to say that that one idea you have to think about all the value chain. You must think about the entire value chain of all the people that are going to be affected. But I'd like to quickly add that the renewable energy aspect of things came because of lack of electricity that began to disturb. And so the women had to always use diesel to power the machines for the factory. And it
Hmm.
became really important to have some sort of other sources of electricity. And so that was how the renewable energy part of it started. And especially because in Nigeria, I'm trying to go over to another level of impact, talking about impact, because in Nigeria, we do have a number of people without access. Thankfully, though, the government have done something about that for the renewable energy aspect of things. They've created some enabling environments for it, right? And so, but there are lots of people who are still without access to electricity. I'm talking about impact. You have to ask yourself, what can I do to create change? I just
Right.
got off a call before I joined this one where I talk to young people and I tell them, I see a lot of people complain about something that is not right. What have you done toward that thing that you complained about?
Mm.
What action did you take toward accomplishing that thing you complained about? I never listen to people complaining or people talking about the government because I ask them, what have you done about it? Have you made, have you taken any little step to correct it? Right. So the point here is that I try to be a difference in my own little way to solve our national electricity problem. Right. Especially because my parents moved to an area. How my renewable energy story started is that my parents built their own house and they moved to that community where they built their house and bought a land. But
Mm.
then there was no electricity there in the community. It's like they were not aware at first when they started building the house. So there was no electricity here. It was off grid. Off grid means that there was no electricity at all. And people
Mm.
had to continue generating their own electricity. So my
Mm.
parents were generating their electricity by using the generator and always buying diesel or fuel to power. They did this for a lot of years. And I started to
Mm.
think this is not sustainable. One, it's not good for the environment. It costs a lot of money. They're going to run out of money if they continue to power their lives every day.
Mhm. Right.
It was so difficult, and I started to look for a solution. I remembered how this same lack of electricity was a problem everywhere. I thought about the women and the factory. I thought about other people who cannot do their business. And I began to think, if we must achieve economic development in our country, there must be complete access to electricity. It's
Mhm.
basic. It's like a basic human right, just the way you have food, clothing, and shelter. Electricity should be the next one. And so
Right.
that's how I started looking for a solution. I decided to train a lot of people to understand how to do that trade, to understand how to provide solar power as electricity to people in their communities.
Right.
That was basically the start of it. And through my nonprofit, Glow Initiative Economic Empowerment, we have a program called Solar Up Nigeria,
Mhm.
bracket SUN, which is also the sun. We're trying to tap the power from the sun, isn't it? Exactly. And so there's one of the projects we've done quickly. I'll just share about that because we're talking about impact. Is that I looked at how lack of electricity affected education. I'm looking about how
Mm.
can I make an impact. As a young person, I'm asking myself, how can I make positive impact? Remember, I said that that was my goal in life to make
Mm.
positive impact. So I was always asking that question in every difficult scenario or at places where I find problem. I ask, what can I do to make the difference? Instead
Right.
of complaining like all the others. And so I saw that lack of electricity affected schools a lot in the rural areas, especially schools that have access to computers. Access to computers. So I saw lots of schools that have computers, but the kids cannot learn computer because there was no electricity. And I thought to myself, what do I do? These people are poor. Should we give them food or should we empower their education? We decided to power those schools so
Mm.
that they have electricity for their computer education, especially. So we have that project called Solar for Schools Community Project. And so the goal is really there are kids now who can learn computer and
Mm.
understand digital education in a 21st century world where everything is computerized and digitalized. You can imagine that some people do not know how to use a computer. And so access to electricity helped that school to generate power to then teach the kids how to use the computer. So that's just one of another quick lessons I can share about impact because then these kids have access to that knowledge. With the knowledge, they can develop skills such as internet skills, graphic design skills. They can learn, they can get jobs with those skills. And so by deciding to make that one impact, several people are affected.
Mm. Right. Because it's not looking at a pure solution. It's looking at the whole ecosystem and saying, well, this affects this affects that, looking or the ripple effect or whatever. You move one piece here, it's almost like rescaling a circle, right? When you make something bigger in any sort of kind of program, you pull it out, then you pull it out, then you pull it out, then it looks like a circle again, and it's perfect, and you keep going. And I think for me, that's how I see impact and making change, is you're constantly pulling it out to make, adjusting all the sides to make that perfect circle again. But as you pull something out to make the perfect circle, you realize, okay, I still have to make all these changes because it's no longer perfect. And it just keeps growing. And I think that's and I think that's definitely the part for me that makes, hold on one second, that for me really shouts and speaks aloud, because that's also where you see that you're giving these children the opportunity to become players in the global platform, because they are now able to compete with children in Western Europe, for example, who don't have questions around electricity. It's not to say that all children in Western Europe have access to computers and know how to use them. That's not it at all. But you're giving them the opportunity, though giving everybody the opportunity. How they use it is very different. Exactly. But the fact that it's that singular opportunity is pretty much like here, right? People are given the opportunity. How they use it is a different story. And you're really trying to uplift and empower, young children in Nigeria through doing that, because that is the future in many ways of the country, but also, to be able to be competitive in the global community of work too.
Yes, and be able to get empowered and have access to the skills that are at play in the global world in the 21st century, right? Digital skills, I think they are one of the most important skills to have at this time. So that's an example of what that impact was able to do or to achieve during that project.
So if I was to say to you, Glory, where do you want to be in 5 years? What is the impact you would like to see within the next 5 years? What would you say with RETTI? Because I'm not sure if you'd mentioned this directly, but if I'm correct, you also train people in understanding how to, install solar panels as well. So you're not just saying, hey, this is the reason why we need solar energy. You're saying, I'm showing you how to do this. I'm giving you a life skill. So what do you see in 5 years? Or what would you like to see in 5 years?
Thank you. I talked a little bit about that part, but not really completely. But then, yes, I do that. We do that at RETTI, just so that people can be empowered with that skill, especially as Nigeria is dealing with lack of access to electricity. And when more people understand how to propose a solar solution, design a solar solution, install solar panels on the rooftop, we create more jobs. And not just that, we increase access to electricity. So that's one of my main work currently at RETTI right now. So yeah, in 5 years, usually when people ask that question, I usually laugh, because it's always, I like taking things one step at a time, but it's a good question because it helps you to put in perspective where you want to go. I know I definitely want to have created up to, initially I said 15,000 entrepreneurs, but I think that was too ambitious. 15,000 renewable energy entrepreneurs, which I think is too ambitious, but I think I'm going to put it down at 8,000. So maybe I know by that time we must have trained up to 17,000 people. 5 years? No, 5 years is too much for that. So let me be realistic, right? And please, maybe you must have noticed it by now. I'm a very realistic person, right? I like to say things realistically. I don't like to give myself something I know is too big. So I think realistically, what we can do in 5 years is about 6,000 people, train up to 6,000 people. I'm hoping that 30% of that can be women, right? Because a lot of women feel that the energy sector is for men. So I want to consciously begin to change the way that I communicate to women to stop seeing that sector as for male. So I'm hoping my target for 30% of that number to be female. And then the overall goal is to ensure that 60% of these people become renewable energy entrepreneurs. They begin to spread awareness about solar power. And ultimately, in 5 years, I want to prepare this number of people so that collectively we can advance access to 247 electricity to at least 80% of Nigeria by the year 2030. So that's kind of like my 10-year goal, is really to train in 5 years up to 6,000 people who will be equipped with the knowledge to start creating solar power solutions that will provide electricity. So that's my realistic goal. This is something I know I can work on. And of course, with more awareness about our work, it could
Mhm.
be more, because we have a lot of the alumni members who are now talking to others about the work of RETTI, who
Mm.
are also installed. At the moment, we have 35% of trainees. Right now, we have about 1,000 trainees. 35% of that are really doing good with the businesses. They are creating access to electricity. And at the moment, the number is about, they have helped to provide access to electricity to up to 1,300 homes and businesses
Wow.
or
Okay.
more. Yes, we have not done a recent update, but this was a figure of January. So they are
Mhm.
continuing to provide solar power. They've installed up to, I can't remember the figure, I can put it in the comment later, for helping to also offset carbon emissions in the process. So it's not just providing power, it's a big cycle,
Right.
combating environmental challenge and helping to reduce carbon emissions by installing solar power. They're helping to promote economic development as more people have access to light for their businesses. They're helping to promote jobs as more people can maintain and retain their jobs because of access to electricity. They're
Right.
also helping to combat climate change through the proposing of clean energy, which is solar power. So that's kind of like the big impact, right? Creating jobs, proposing access to cleaner energy, and also maintaining a clean environment.
I
So
love
that's what we're
that.
doing in the RETI aspect. Thank you.
No, no, I love that. And I think it most definitely is, a full circle cycle. And, like I have no idea in terms of concept of the numbers, in terms of, because Nigeria is huge, or, how you could scale up or scale down. But, the fact of the matter is that the fact that you're doing this and that it can revolutionize the way people live and change lives is something that should never be underestimated. And once people start to understand, and I think, going back to our original opening comments, and also what you spoke about in terms of your initial story, which is the more you work with the community, the more we work with the groups we're trying to help,
Yeah.
the more we increase our chances of success, and the more we will make impact, but we also increase the chances of us, or we broaden the spectrum for impact that we can make. Because to your original point, we may think about steps A, B, C, D, but then there are all these other benefits and consequences that happen as a result of it that we may not have planned for, that also are very, very impactful. So it's been, I mean, I don't know where the time has flown to, Glory. Like, seriously, this has gone so quickly. And this has definitely been great and food for thought. And, for me personally, and I'm sure, once this is replayed and people have a watch, there's so much that I've learned about, just like going through your social media, what's going on in Nigeria. There's so much more to learn besides what we read in the news or see online. There's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of new technology, there's a lot of
Yes.
talent that we don't always get to see. So really thank you for taking the time and really shining a light on all the good things that you're doing, because I think for a lot of us it is a new, what's the word, it's opening a door to a new world that we didn't necessarily know about in depth. And I think this is also a really good backdrop and really exciting for people to see, and a great precursor to the Future of Impact Summit next month, because then it leads nicely into, when you talk some more, and the depths of the of what you'll be talking about there. So thank
Yeah.
you, thank you,
You're
thank you.
welcome.
Tell everybody where they can find you, or your social media. I'll leave you to tell everyone where they can find you on Insta, LinkedIn, wherever you pop up.
Oh, of course. And before that, I'd like to quickly say that I like what you said concerning carrying the people along, right? That is what ensures the sustainability. right? And I just wanted to say that to highlight that that's exactly what we do for the alumni and the people that we train at Renewable, at RETTI, right? And so I always think about the end goal. I'm like, what happens to this guy after this training?
Right.
What can they do with the knowledge? And then we start to look for opportunities for them, for
Mm,
internships, for mentoring continuously. We're always presenting jobs to them, bringing them on site to actually practice that installation that they have learned so
mm,
that they are able to take home that knowledge. So we have seen that that strategy works
mm,
better in making us a one big community, and everybody's making change. Everyone feels loved, everyone feels accepted, and they feel like that their business is doing better because they have that support. Thank you so much. And then I just want to say that yes, please, you can find me with the same name showing on the screen, Glory Oguegbu, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter with the same name. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any inquiries at all around making an impact, renewable energy, women empowerment, climate change, agriculture, or anything
mhm.
like that. I'll be willing to share ideas or tips with you. Thank you, Lynn, for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And I'd like to invite everyone here as well to please attend the Future of Impact Summit, which we have next week. I'm a speaker there. Lynn, as well, is also a speaker at the event.
No,
And
not
we,
next week, next month.
oh, next month, sorry. And so next month, sorry about that. And it's going to be an incredible platform to learn from up to 5 speakers talking about entrepreneurship from different countries. 5 speakers from
Mm,
different countries. So you can imagine the power of knowledge, because I like knowledge a lot. You can imagine the quality of knowledge that can come from that, hearing different perspectives,
yep,
different best practices. If you're a startup or anyone who will listen to the video later, please make it a date, because then you can learn things that you can replicate in your own country and in your own work.
correct.
Thank you
And
very much, Leanne.
I think you
Yeah,
said that perfectly. It's an opportunity to hear from experts that you might not always have access to. They might not be as present on LinkedIn or social media, but they're giving up their time to come and join the Future of Impact Summit, which is the 4th to the 8th of October, and they're really looking to kind of create impact, share their knowledge, share their experience. So, please come ready to get your hands dirty and to learn. And as Glory said, you can never go wrong or never be poor if you do handwork. So
exactly.
have a great day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. It has been